You're getting it. Everything with my pregnancy with Eric was pretty normal. I went to specialists and they did special sonograms and everything turned out to be normal. So we didn't worry about anything going into the birth. I had a C-section for Eric at another hospital, and about an hour after he was born, they realized something just wasn't right with the way he was swallowing. Like he was kind of coughing and he was trying to eat and he couldn't get anything down.
They brought him in to do this test. I guess they put something down there to see how far it went down. They saw it started coiling, so they knew that there was a blockage there. That's when they came in and they said that he has esophageal atresia and they weren't going to be able to treat it at the location that we were at.
They said we're going to have to transfer him to Stony Brook.
I had finished my exam and then Dad walks into the NICU and here I am as the first person he meets and have to tell him that his son needs a major surgery. If you've ever met Mr. Fedler, he's very, very stoic. So I couldn't read what was going on in his mind at the time.
Yeah, and just as a dad, I mean, what else? You just got to be there, you know? Hold everyone together. While everyone else is doing this, you kind of want to be that steady line.
My duty as the physician is to lay out exactly what it is to the parents in terms that they can understand, because this is the most serious thing that they're ever going to experience in their life, and it will be something that's going to be life-altering for their child. Mom was actually still hospitalized at the outside facility, so now I have to also gain her trust over the phone and make her understand that I'm going to take him, we're going to do our very best.
And I remember her saying, he's beautiful on the outside. She said, I'm going to go make him beautiful on the inside. And she explained as best she could. She's great at explaining everything.
Calabro drew out a pretty good diagram for me, how it was. So basically your esophagus runs down here, your trachea runs along parallel to it. And so what happened was his esophagus never formed, it just kind of stopped.
Yeah,
right here.
The two ends didn't connect.
They didn't connect. So she basically just drew it out. Basically, yep, we're going to reattach the esophagus, cut that piece off that trachea that went to the stomach and tie that off.
So when a patient is born with EATEF, which is otherwise known as esophageal atresia, tracheoesophageal fistula, they're actually graded type A through E, and depending on where they are on that spectrum would actually determine what they would need for a surgical intervention. EATEF is actually a life-threatening condition because if the air continues to go through the attachment between the esophagus and the trachea, you can start getting a massive air pushed into the stomach, which would cause massive gastric distension, which can also then compress on the diaphragm, which then compresses the lungs and compresses the heart. Babies who have EATEF are at high risk of cardiopulmonary failure if it is not recognized early and not managed early.
But I did get to see him the day after his surgery. And in the NICU there, like he was all hooked up. It's hard to see that. The nurses in the NICU.
Yeah, they were all great.
They were great. The first time I got there, they were pointing out all the equipment, said this is monitoring his heart, this is his O2, and there was this beat means this, don't worry. I knew, like, just from the amount of detail they were giving me, that he was in really good hands, and you know, that part of me was at ease. Something we used a lot was the Ronald McDonald room that they had there in the NICU. Well, we were there every day up in his room, and every day there was a social worker or someone coming through just to check in on us. Even like the nurses and the doctors too, like that's not their job necessarily to take care of your mental health, but they totally understood and they were like, hey, like, how are you doing?
I mean, they're all angels on earth in that place, honestly. Like just the way they, like I said, not only taking care of him, but making sure, you know, my wife was all right, I was all right. Even how Emmy was doing at home, stuff like that.
I know that there was always someone in the Ronald McDonald room. One or two volunteers from March of Dimes, and they had, one of the best things was they brought in Halloween costumes for these little NICU babies. Like Eric got a Fred Flintstone one. It looked like Fred's Flintstone, and it was so sweet. And it's a moment that you don't expect to have like a little bit of joy in the middle of this moment. You're like, oh wow, okay, maybe things aren't so bad. We can still laugh and kind of be happy about this new life that we've just been so stressed about so far. I think it was like a full month before we were allowed to actually take him out of the isolette and hold him. You know, we could hold his hands and touch his feet through the isolette, but he wasn't supposed to move much. He had chest tubes, so that he really, they didn't want him to move. That's really excruciating to just watch your kid like that. She also kind of orchestrated us being able to hold him for the first time, even though he had the chest tubes. We were concerned. We're like, oh, but if you put our baby in our arms, we're gonna be here all night. And she said, that's fine, I'll stay all night. Dr. Calabro told us it's kind of a way of therapy for them too, just getting the skin-to-skin contact. She says, this is the best thing we could do for him today. It made me feel like I was doing my job as a mom, Finally, I could contribute,
So I think the best message that we can convey to anybody asking about EA, TEF, or anybody who has a child who's born with it is you are in good hands. We will never leave you alone. We will answer any questions that you might have. We will make sure that we're there with you 100% along the way. And I think all of the teams here at Stony Brook work together in a really close fashion to make sure that any baby who comes through these doors, especially the congenital anomalies, are really well taken care of. I know this feels like the world is crumbling on you right now or that the floor is falling in, but one day in the future, you're gonna look back at this and you're gonna think of it as a distant memory. And I think that really reigns through when they get to the 2-year mark like Eric and the family reaches out with a birthday card or a photo and you see how he's growing and he's thriving, or you get a video of him playing with his sister and it's like, I was a part of that.
I love my brother. Thank you, Stony Brook.